Shocking escalation. Iran's supreme leader Khamenei killed in the first strikes, the world braces for chaos. Good evening. This is a special report from the Global News Desk. The date is 1st March 2026. The world is waking up to a reality that was unthinkable just 48 hours ago. The conflict we began covering on the morning of 28 February has not just escalated, it has been utterly transformed by a single, seismic event. We can now confirm, with a high degree of certainty, what was only rumored in the fog of the first day's war. The supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, is dead. Let me take you back to the beginning of this earth-shattering development. It is now the early hours of 1st March, and the official confirmation has finally come. Iran's state media, after hours of denial and what they term psychological warfare from the West, has officially reported that Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed in the joint US-Israeli strikes on Saturday morning. The announcement, made in a somber and brief statement, confirmed that his body was recovered from the rubble of his compound in Tehran. The defensive narrative from Tehran collapsed, replaced by the stark reality of a leadership decapitated. To understand how we got here, we must reconstruct the timeline of that fateful morning, 28 February 2026. At exactly 9:45 a.m. local time, the first wave of what the Pentagon has named Operation Epic Fury began. The initial explosions in Tehran were not just aimed at military installations or nuclear facilities. According to senior Israeli officials who spoke to ABC News, the primary, overarching target was the regime's command and control, and at the heart of that was Ayatollah Khamenei. Reports from Israeli media, specifically Channel 12, later detailed the sheer ferocity of the strike on the supreme leader's compound in the Pashtun district of Tehran. They reported that approximately 30 bombs were dropped on the compound, a deliberate and overwhelming use of force designed to ensure the target was neutralized. The compound, which housed his office and living quarters, was destroyed. Initially, there was only silence and smoke. For hours, the world was left guessing. Throughout the day on 28 February, a bizarre information war played out. On one side, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in a televised address in the late afternoon, stated pointedly that there were many signs that this dictator is gone. He spoke of the destruction of Khamenei's compound as a key achievement of the operation. Hours later, President Donald Trump, in an interview with NBC News, said of the reports of Khamenei's death, "We feel that is a correct story." This was followed by a more direct and characteristically blunt post on his Truth Social platform, where he called Khamenei one of the most evil people in history and declared him dead. On the other side, Iranian officials were in full denial mode. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi told NBC News that, "As far as I know, the Supreme Leader and President Masoud Pezeshkian were alive and in a safe location." Other officials called the Israeli claims psychological warfare aimed at breaking the nation's morale. Yet, the signs were ominous. The semi-official Tasnim news agency reported that the IRGC had confirmed the death of several high-ranking officials, though they conspicuously avoided mentioning the Supreme Leader. Roads around Khamenei's residence were locked down by security forces, and the country experienced a near-total internet blackout, as reported by the monitoring group NetBlock. The truth, however, is a stubborn thing. By the evening of 28 February, Reuters, CNN, and Axios were all citing sources confirming that Khamenei's body had been found. The Kyiv Post reported that a senior Israeli official claimed a photograph of the body had been shown to Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump. The narrative of denial from Tehran was becoming increasingly untenable. It finally collapsed in the early hours of Sunday, 1st March, when state media, now under the control of a caretaker government or perhaps by factions within the IRGC coming to terms with the new reality, made the official announcement. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the man who had ruled Iran with an iron fist for nearly 37 years, was gone. The death of the supreme leader is not just a symbolic victory for the US and Israel, it is a strategic cataclysm for the Islamic Republic. The strikes on 28 February did not just kill one man. According to reports that are still being verified, the initial wave of attacks was devastatingly effective at decapitating the regime's entire upper echelon. Alongside Khamenei, Iranian state media and Reuters have confirmed the deaths of two other titans of the regime. Defense Minister Amir Nasirzadeh and the commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, General Mohammad Pakpour. Israeli officials also claim to have killed several senior figures in the nuclear program and other top security leaders, with some sources suggesting the total number of high-ranking officials killed could be as high as 40. Think about what that means. In a single morning, the ideological guide, the military commander, and the defense architect of the Iranian state were all eliminated. This is a vacuum of power unlike anything the Middle East has seen in decades. The immediate reaction on the streets of Tehran was telling and foreshadowed the complex chaos to come. As the sun set on 28 February, before any official confirmation, witnesses reported a surreal scene. From their windows, in neighborhoods across Tehran, people began to cheer. Loud whistles, applause, and celebratory music could be heard, and fireworks were seen being launched. For a significant portion of the Iranian public, one that has endured bloody crackdowns on protests and decades of repression, the death of the supreme leader was not a cause for mourning, but a moment of liberation. As one person told BBC Persian, the world has become a better place now. This joy, however, was not universal, and it was tempered by a deep fear of what comes next. Because while the leadership in Tehran is in shock, the war machine it built is still very much alive and actively seeking revenge. The retaliatory strikes that Iran launched on 28 February, initially in response to the first wave of US-Israeli attacks, have now taken on a new, more desperate, and more dangerous character. The stated goal has shifted from deterrence to revenge. The scale of Iran's retaliation on the first day was already immense, and it fundamentally expanded the theater of war. As we reported last night, Iranian missile and drone barrages, part of what they called Operation True Promise, were not just aimed at Israel. They were a calculated, multinational response targeting the very heart of the US military presence in the Gulf. In Bahrain, the headquarters of the US Navy's Fifth Fleet in Manama was struck, with reports of fires and damage to residential areas in the capital. In Kuwait, the Ali Al Salem Air Base, home to the US Air Force's 386th Air Expeditionary Wing, was targeted, though the Kuwaiti military stated they successfully repelled a drone attack on their naval base. In Qatar, the sprawling Al Udeid Air Base, which hosts around 10,000 US troops and serves as the forward headquarters of our Central Command, was hit. A diplomat told AFP that 44 missiles and 8 drones were fired, injuring 8 people and damaging a long-range radar system at the base. In the UAE, the Al Dhafra Air Base was attacked, and the luxury Fairmont Hotel on the Palm Jumeirah in Dubai was struck by debris, causing injuries and panic. And in a move with immediate global economic consequences, the IRGC announced the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, declaring it unsafe for shipping due to the military conflict. The human cost of this first day of war is already staggering and deeply tragic. The Iranian Red Crescent Society reported that by the end of 28 February, at least 201 people had been killed and 747 injured across 24 of Iran's 31 provinces. These numbers, however, include one of the most heart-wrenching incidents of the entire conflict. In the southern city of Minab, a missile struck a girls' school. The official death toll from that single, horrifying event has fluctuated throughout the day, with reports settling on at least 85 to 108 young students and teachers killed. Satellite imagery analyzed by CNN shows the school was located approximately 60 meters from an Iranian military base, suggesting the strike may have been a tragic case of an errant missile or collateral damage from the attack on the military target. The IAS Central Command has stated they are aware of the reports and are investigating, but for the families in Minab, the war has already delivered an unimaginable loss. On the Israeli side, the physical damage was less severe thanks to the Iron Dome and Arrow defense systems, but the psychological impact of being under direct, massive assault from Iran was profound. Air raid sirens sent millions scrambling into shelters across the country, from the northern borders to Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. The Israeli military reported intercepting numerous missiles and drones, with only minor injuries and some structural damage from falling shrapnel reported. The international reaction, which was already fractured on the first day, is now in a state of high alert and deep division following the confirmation of Khamenei's death. The United Nations Security Council held an emergency session late on 28 February, with calls for de-escalation from some members, while others, like Russia and China, are reportedly demanding an immediate halt to the Israeli operation. The EU's foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, has convened an emergency meeting of EU foreign ministers for today, 1st March, to formulate a unified response. Statements from world leaders are pouring in. The UK, Australia, and Canada have expressed support for the IAS and Israel's right to defend themselves against the Iranian threat. Meanwhile, the Arab nations who found themselves on the front lines of Iran's retaliation are in a precarious position. Qatar has strongly condemned the Iranian missile attacks on its soil as a flagrant violation of its national sovereignty. Saudi Arabia has reported repelling attacks, and Jordan confirmed it shot down missiles. But the biggest and most dangerous wildcard now is Hezbollah in Lebanon. For now, Hezbollah has raised its alert level and issued statements of solidarity with Iran, mourning the death of Khamenei, but has stopped short of launching a full-scale, pre-planned assault on Israel. Hezbollah's leader is reportedly adopting a wait-and-see approach, likely waiting to see who emerges as the true power broker in Tehran before committing its massive rocket arsenal. However, Israeli officials have warned that if Hezbollah enters the fight, it will turn Beirut and all of southern Lebanon into a firestorm. The northern border of Israel is a powder keg, waiting for a single spark. As we enter 1st March, the situation is more volatile than at any point in the last 50 years. The death of a head of state in an act of war is a rare and world-altering event. The immediate questions are now stark. Who will succeed Ayatollah Khamenei? Will the transfer of power be smooth, or will it lead to a violent power struggle between factions of the IRGC and the clerics? The IRGC has vowed the most devastating offensive operation against US bases and Israel. Is that vow now more urgent and more deadly? And what of the Iranian people? Will the celebrations in Tehran turn into a full-blown uprising, emboldened by the regime's weakness, or will fear of the chaos of a failed state keep them indoors? The world is holding its breath. Commercial aviation over the Gulf has ground to a halt. The US Abraham Lincoln and the US Gerald R. Ford carrier strike groups remain on station, a massive display of American naval power. The Strait of Hormuz is closed, and global oil prices are expected to skyrocket when markets open. We are in uncharted territory. The supreme leader is dead, the war is raging on multiple fronts, and the future of the Middle East hangs in the balance. We will continue to bring you updates as this historic and terrifying situation develops. This is the Global News Desk. Stay safe.